السلام عليكم، مرحبا بكم في البودكاست تاع كوزون. كل ابيزود كيكون عندنا واحد الجيست فاوندر تاع شي ستارت اب ولا تاع شي انتربريز وكيبارطاجي معنا الفيكو ديالو، كيبارطاجي معنا ليستوار ديالو كيفاش شبنا هذاك البيزنس، شنو هما لي زينسايت تشالنجز والتيبس اللي نقدروا ناخذوهم ونقدروا نديبلويهم باش ان شاء الله نقدروا ننجحوا البيزنس ديالنا. الابيزود تاع اليوم معنا واحد سبيشال جيست اللي هو رينس جاكوبز اللي كان في سولاريس بانك يونيكورن ودابا كريا ولا كوفوندا لا ستارت اب ديالهم زازو اللي في الفينتك اندستري. اليوم غادي يهضر على الاكسبيريونس ديالو، على التجارب ديالو كامله. ليبيزود غيكون بلونجلي، دونك فوالا ليتس جو. ويلكم Jacobs to Cousin Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're happy to have you here. So I've been doing some research about your journey. So I found out that you started with sales at different companies. You were doing it with some companies like HTC, doing it with Fintech.
Right.
So can you please talk us about your journey and why you chose the fintech industry?
Yeah, happy to. Actually, right as you said, in HTC, I started in the tech and smartphone world, and I never thought I was going to go into banking. But then I landed in Berlin, in Germany, and this is where the fintech movement had just started in 2014, 2015, and what really drew me to it is that it wasn't so much the banking aspect that I liked, but it was about how do you apply technology to make the outdated and dusty banking really work for the new generation. So there was a whole group of people and an incubator around setting up different fintech companies called FinLeap in Berlin. And all these fintechs had the same problem, that had to do with how do we connect and how do we partner with banks, right? Banks were not very keen on partnering with those startups and all those founders with crazy ideas. So we said, you know what, why don't we create our own bank? And that bank is only going to focus on how can we enable fintechs? How do we enable tech companies and big corporates to offer financial solutions to their own customers? So that led to Solarisbank, where I was lucky enough to be a founding member, being part of their sales and a commercial organization, and saw that from zero revenue all the way to 100 million plus ARR. So with that, a lots of ups and downs, right? That was not just one big party. But what you, especially in commercial or within sales, what you see is a host of different solutions and ideas that come towards Solarisbank for different purposes. It could be lenders that say, I want to do different lending solutions, payment companies, neobanks. So having seen the inside of these companies and being very close to building out all of these different solutions through Solarisbank, that gave me a very broad view of how fintech works in Europe, right? And that really helped me understand what my next step would be for my own journey, which is indeed Zazu, the SME neobank for Africa.
Great. So before talking about Zazu, you mentioned that you were with the founding team. And you were, I would guess, like there was few people you were doing zero at sale. So, how did you make it to reach this big revenue? And what were the key ingredients to do so?
Yeah, on the one hand, it had to do with being there at the right time in the market. That's always a big benefit. What helped also a lot was we didn't try to do everything at once, right? There were very particular products that we did first. And looking at the customer feedback, we looked at what should the next product be. And in the beginning, that meant that sales was the conduit between the market and the feedback that we were getting towards product and tech to make sure that we were building really for the customers we wanted to serve or were going to serve. So that was the first step. And then it has to do with, at some point, you have to move your vision or your view from hardcore sales and outbound only to how do you go to nurturing your existing customers and how do you make sure you can provide more value for them and extract more value from them. And that is what eventually led us to be successful in Germany. And then we said, let us do this in the other countries in Europe as well. So Spain, Italy, France, the UK at some point were all countries that we were looking at. And then we made another big bet around crypto, where we were the first European bank to allow custody and brokerage for crypto solutions. And having a full banking license helps a lot in gaining that credibility from the market. There's a lot of companies out there, like, for example, a American Express or a Samsung, that would say, I only want to work with big or with companies that have a big license, that are renowned and that are stable enough. I don't want to work with smaller fintechs that maybe only have a payment license. So that helped a lot. But yeah, it was not built indeed in one day. It took some time.
Okay, it took some time. So you started with your early adopters. You narrowed down your focus just to provide some services. You get your feedback.
Right.
You try to, I would say, enlarge the scope for your existing customers, and then you and then you scaled with the bigger companies. So I would say you started with like startups, small companies, SMEs, and then you were hitting like the big corporation to become like a B2B model, like so.
Exactly. You need to build first that trust in the market, right? People need to trust you. They need to understand that you are there to stay. And the big guys are not going to come the first day you are showing up in the market. They are looking at things. Also, in the early days of fintech, a lot of corporates were not yet sure what they wanted to do with embedded finance solutions. Do they want to offer cards themselves? Do they want to do embedded lending? Do they not want to do that? How do they deal with their existing bank relationships? So it was initially also heavily focused towards the fintech companies and the tech companies. And in Europe, there was a dynamic of fintech versus banks for a while. So there was a bit of a co-opetition, right? And then slowly that morphed more into, we can work together on particular products because there's particular aspects that fintechs have specialized on that a bank can benefit from as well. And once you've built indeed that trust and you've seen the first case studies and the first growth of customers, then the big corporates were starting to catch up and realizing, hey, actually these products that these fintechs are building make sense for our customer base as well. Right? The telcos, for example, is a big one of them.
Yeah. So this is, I would say about what's happening with the fintech. You mentioned just right now that there is like some kind of resistance because you are entering a market that's already, you have big players, big banks, and they already have their customers, and you are a new player. They would see you like as a small player and entering, and maybe they don't believe yet in your services. So when you say trust is really important, by strategically talking, most of the startups, they are not inventing, most of the time they're not investing in new industry. They are starting in an existing industry.
Right.
And in what way can we really like get across the entry barrier that could be really high for like small startups or SMEs? So what's your advice?
The advice for starting in an industry where you have already big existing players, I think it has to do with, don't try to go against them right away because they can wipe you out very quickly, right? It is about finding the particular aspects where customers are struggling with. And in banking, there's a couple different aspects that we can go about in a second. And really working closely with those small customers and slowly building out that community of customers that are very loyal to you and they understand what you're trying to do. But then I think it's important to find very quickly one of the players that you work with, one of the big players that you can actually work with, can partner with, because there's always somebody in the more established world that will want to make something happen, that will want to change the status quo. So you need to find those people. And that's not always easy, for sure, right? Because it might be hidden in all kinds of different places. But that is really where a big difference can be made if you find the right people around yourself and really building an environment for yourself or for your company where you have people that are supporting you and wanting to partner up. So I think that's a very big aspect. It's also not so much about, as I said, fighting against the big guys, right? It's really understanding where do you fit in with a particular set of products that maybe they don't serve or they don't serve well enough. And if you go after their core business right away, of course they will try to do something about that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for your answer. So now, why when you started like Solarisbank, you were a small team, and maybe you needed funds. So how did you do it? How did you survive this first like months or years? How was it?
So it is. I think uncertainty is always quite stressful, right? I think we're going through that right now as well with Zazu. But the good thing for us was the fact that we were a regulated entity, and a lot of fintechs were coming about saying we want to offer cards or accounts, but they didn't want to be regulated. So we could be the translator, if you will, between the new fintech world and the language and the data that the regulator understands, so that the regulator really liked that approach because they were getting a lot of influx from fintech companies that were not really knowing what the licenses requirements were. So that helped a lot. And then very quickly, there were existing banks, BBVA, a very big bank in Spain, ABN AMRO, but also these big banks had understood that something new is happening here. Banking as a service is there to stay. And they wanted to be close on the action. They wanted to get those insights, and therefore they invested quite early. And then very quickly, Visa, the payments company, realized we have an opportunity here to exponentially increase the way we can issue cards. So Visa joined, and alongside we had a couple of more growth funds like Lakestar and Vulcan, which is from the co-founder of Microsoft. So that is how we were able to grow. But in the beginning, it is indeed about making the numbers work, right? Really showing that there is traction. And maybe it's not in the beginning as much about revenue traction, but about, are people using the product? Are they growing? And the more our companies or our partners were growing, the more exponentially we could grow, of course. So that was a big help. Well, because we were part of that incubator that I mentioned earlier, we were benefiting from all these other companies that were also reaching out. Right? So there was a bigger ecosystem being built in Berlin as well. So that's what helped a lot.
So talking about incubator, about mentorship, did you have like a specific mentor, a specific person? Or I would even go back before like incubation or before even entrepreneurship. Did your environment help you like become this version of yourself? Did you get some skills that's when you started doing entrepreneurship, you already set up. You didn't need, I know you need a lot of skills. You develop a lot of things, but you were already, I would say, ready for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned when you are starting out, and you shouldn't expect that it will come naturally, right? You need to work on those things, but first you need to understand where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses, and where do I find the support for that. So in sales, I think there is an aspect of having it in your DNA, being an outgoing person, being able and willing to talk to customers and understand their problems. But then there's about how do you structure that? How do you make sure you bring that into a conversation that you can guide to a close? And on the one hand, it is really being thrown into the deep water and learning how to swim. Right, so going into those uncomfortable situations, going onto stage for the first time at a conference, right, can be very, very scary. But the more you do that, and the more you push yourself into that kind of environments, the more natural it becomes, right, and the more comfortable you are with dealing with such situations as well. When it comes to particular mentors, in the fintech scene, I think in general there's quite some openness in people wanting to partner with each other or understanding how we can partner and share various stories or share problems. What is important to go to the meetups, right? Whether that is founder meetups or meetups on particular topics, and build out your network there, and just asking them, I don't know how to do this. How have you solved for this, right? And just be very open about, I don't know what I'm doing right now. And people are very open to take an hour and go through how they have solved for that. And they often are very keen to give back. So that is what we used a lot. Today in Zazu, we do have indeed a couple of advisors that we're getting support from. There's a mix of an AI advisor in Silicon Valley. There is some operator in Africa that are in a couple different countries, and a GP from one of the funds in Africa. So it helps to get a different flavor on the particular topics that we are trying to solve, right? On funding, on operational topics in Africa, as well as on the AI piece that we are looking to grow into later. So, but what you need to be careful of, I think, is not just anybody can or is a good advisor. The fact that they may have been successful doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good advisor, right? Because they may have that experience, but how do they translate that into your day-to-day requests that you have towards them? So I think you need to be very cautious of giving up equity to advisors, but have a couple that you can always reach out to and just share stories with or challenges with. So that's, I think, very critical.
Great, thank you. So now we move on from, I would say, from Europe to Africa.
Right.
And why this move from Africa? What was the trigger
Mhm.
to really move and leave like Solaris and get into Zazu? So,
Yeah. There's a couple of different factors that were coming together for me. On the one hand, in the European space, in the fintech space in Europe, it became a very saturated market. That was one thing. So people are looking at how do you optimize and tweak particular features or specialties rather than big impact. That was one thing. And the second thing is I'm more interested at looking at where are the fundamentals currently changing of an ecosystem. And what you see in Africa a lot is that there is more and more talent that used to live abroad coming back and wanting to solve problems in their country based on their education elsewhere or their experience that they worked elsewhere. That's one thing, the talent that is coming back. It is the growing set of SMEs that are becoming more tech savvy. Right? So you have a generation of business owners that is turning over their business to their children or to their grandchildren. And those kids all come from a digital upbringing oftentimes. So they understand how can I optimize digital solutions for my business. And generally, particularly in Morocco, the government push is very hard on let's become much more digital, right? And the openness of people to try things and being curious, those fundamentals are currently kind of being rewritten in favor of pushing fintech solutions up. And that's why you see really cool new solutions coming about in Morocco, but also in South Africa and also in Kenya and in Egypt. You see those different markets are popping up. And that's where the impact can be the greatest, right? Really, really helping them, helping SMEs in our case to get better clarity.
Great. So if I understood well, Zazu, you are solving problems for entrepreneurs. Again, you are focusing on them, and at the same time, you are assembling the pieces of the puzzle for all the services, the financial services. So this is about Zazu, and I want to congratulate you on raising funds recently
Thank
for
you.
$1 million. Can you tell us more about it? And if you can share with us how you did it, and what were the key elements that's helped you do it? Was it the pitch? Was it the problem that you have? So what was it?
Yeah, it was not the easiest funding round that I've experienced. There was on the one hand, 2024 was a tough year to start raising funds, and throughout 2025 things got a little bit better in the VC world, but still not where they used to be. So we heavily looked at angels. So how do we make sure we get people that come from the operator world, that come from their own first-hand experience of dealing with banks or dealing with financial solutions, and therefore our solution resonates very well with them. VCs in Africa are often looking at an opportunity differently than how a US or European investor would look at it. Very particularly if you have pre-seed, right? The pre-seed round, which in Europe and in the US very often means we have an idea, we are starting to build a technology, and maybe we have a first customer, but often we're still building because it's pre.
Yeah.
Whereas in Africa, it's often the case of like, we need to make sure that there is a set of customers. Ideally, there is maybe some MRR already. And valuations are not the same as what you would see in Europe, right? So that was something that we honestly had to go and learn and be humbled by a little bit on the one hand. But the conundrum that we had was, as an SME neobank, you cannot just launch an MVP and hoping it survives with the technology, right? You need to have a certain amount of robust systems and foundations in place because you're dealing with people's money. So you cannot just go around and trying to solve some problems here and there. And that requires money. So at the end, what we did was we were able, through various safe notes, right, a financial instrument we were using, get various angels collected and a couple different VCs from the European space that put in a very small tickets because they believed in us. So that helped a lot. So it wasn't one big check that was written for 1 million euros, but there was a lot of small checks over the course of 2025 that made us go that next step and always the next step and the next step until we were able to build out the product that we really were looking for.
I would say about safe notes. So it's So this is something that I didn't really know before.
Mhm.
I only knew about like giving away some of your equity. Can you
Right.
just elaborate more about safe notes and how does it work with the different investors?
Yeah. So a safe note, so a normal investment round is indeed you are effectively selling some of your shares, right? You're selling some of your equity against a certain valuation. And that's the discussion you have with investors. With a safe note, you're basically telling them when we're doing a bigger round, you are guaranteed to convert you're guaranteed to get a certain amount of equity based on an agreement that we have today. You're not right away as an investor entering the cap table. You're not right away becoming an owner of the business, but you are guaranteed to become an owner. You already give us money now. You're being guaranteed to become an owner once we do the next funding round when everybody comes on the cap table, which makes it much easier for founders to close. So this is a concept that was created by the accelerator YC in Silicon Valley, and that helps to increase the speed for founders to close. So there's not a lot of legal work that you need to go through. You need to set up a template once, which are often available online that you maybe want to tweak a little bit. And you don't need to go to the notary or change your statutes or articles of association. So therefore, the speed increases significantly in access to cash. Also, it becomes easier to take maybe 100,000 from one investor, and then 3 months later you take another 100,000. So it is not a defined round per se that you need to have to close to start getting money into the system.
Great. So I would ask you about scalability. So you are here in Zazu. You did scale in Europe. So what's the ingredient that would help you scale whenever you want in every continent or in every country? So what's the ingredient? I know it's two different markets, but how do you see scalability and what's the key ingredient to do it?
For scalability, I mean, I think that's the secret sauce everybody is going after, right? Finding that scalability. I think it has a lot to do with listening more than that you are shouting as marketing, right? I think you really need to, for a while, stay true to what your vision is and listen to those customers. I think it's important to not put on too much on your plate at once. There's enough problems to solve with one market, right? Versus trying to solve for 5 markets at the same time, because you're going to make one mistake that you make in 5 markets at the same time. So do particular things first. And I think scalability comes often with how do you automate certain operations in your system? How do you make sure you systematize a lot of that work? It is quite easy to say, I have a solution that has certain operations around this, and I'm throwing people at the problem. So if I'm scaling or I'm seeing a bit more traction, I'm just throwing people at the problem. And that's at the end of the day not really where true scale comes in, because you're increasing your Opex, you're increasing your cost base, while your revenue is marginally increasing. And I think this is where it's more and more important, and probably getting more easier by using AI, of using systems that allow you to scale rapidly, so your unit economics stay the same or go down perhaps even, instead of just throwing people at the problem. So that's where automation, I think, and really truly understanding operations to the most granular detail is critical.
So talking about automation, so right now the buzzword is AI. Everyone is talking about AI. Do you use AI, and do you think do you think it fits for every organization?
It's a little bit asking, right? Would you think internet is a good idea 20, 30 years ago? I think it's a fundamental change in how we are interacting with data in every industry. And you might say, yeah, okay, but a carpenter or a plumber has no need for AI. To some extent, of course, but to another extent, you could say, well, if they are facing a particular problem with, like, a pipe has bursted in a particular situation, they might want to quickly consult. Instead of Googling it and going on a forum, why not just quickly grabbing AI and try to find the solution in a becoming more efficient and for effective with your time. How we are using AI in our system, we have purposely not yet pushed AI to the end customer, because we think it's more important to get data in and understanding how our customers behaving, instead of trying to use the buzzwords of, like, oh, we have AI here, we have AI there. And at the end, AI chatbots are still not really working the way I think they should be working. I think the human interaction is still far superior compared to AI. How we are using AI, however, is on the tech side. So we're using tools like CodeRabbit, which helps a lot with getting tech reviews for our code. We're using Claude for making very particular pieces of our code or generating particular pieces of our code and optimizing systems in that way. A recognition of documents for KYC, we're using tools for that. So we are trying to find ways, how can we speed up our output without linearly increasing our cost with that as well. And that's where AI can benefit a lot. Over time, however, right, when we get data in and we can feed the right data patterns into AI, then we can start really leveraging this. So I think AI is very strong on pattern recognition over large data sets. And this is only making sense when you have 6 to 1 year of transaction history, for example, of a customer, where you can say that seasonality plays a particular role, or you can predict their cash flow over time and understanding what they should be doing with that potential cash flow dip that might come in, right? Maybe take a working capital loan, maybe hire more people, or maybe let some people go to reduce your costs. So these are all things that will then come in, but one thing at a time.
Great. I believe that's AI. You need data, and also you need that the human parts of it need to be ready.
Right.
So how do you manage this this interaction? And what advice would you tell to startups, entrepreneurs who just want to use AI? So is it a good sales word to have, or should they focus on the core thing of their problem they are trying to solve?
So of course it's a sexy word to use nowadays, and some investors are very much honing in on, are you using AI and what are you doing with AI? And they find that very, very sexy. I think it's more important to see what is the problem that the customer is having and how do I solve that problem. AI will play a role in that down the line for sure, but there is something more fundamental that you need to look at first, like what is the exact problem that the customer is having. You will have some tech-savvy customers that say, I only want to use AI tools, but I think just using AI tools for the purpose of using AI tools or having AI tools in there and having it in your marketing is, I'm not a big fan of it. Let me say it like this. Right, so that's how I look at it.
Okay, thank you. So right now we're gonna move on to the ecosystem, to the African and Moroccan ecosystem. So what are your views on the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Africa, in Morocco? Can you please share it with us? Yeah.
I think on the entrepreneurship in Morocco or across the continent, you see a lot of people that they have experience, or they're using tools from the international world, right? Whether this is Slack or Notion or Figma or all those different tools. And then they look back at their institutions in their own country and they're like, that's not what I want to use. And then it starts to trigger that conversation of how do I solve for that stumbling block that I'm coming through all the time. That could be banking, that could be insurance, that could be particular tech problems that you're facing. So it's about not being happy with the status quo. And that's, I think, where more and more people also get educated to say, like, I'm going to try to solve something because I have enough easy access to tools to be able to make something happen. When particular tools, right? So over the last couple of days, I met a lot of really, really cool companies. And I was actually really interested in seeing, like, some of these companies are way outperforming in terms of capabilities and functionality than what you're seeing in Europe, 100%. And it's very exciting to see. It's still in the early days, so it hasn't really always reached mainstream just yet, but it is coming up, and you really see a really growing ecosystem in Morocco of fintech entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs that want to make a change, and they're being supported by more and more VCs coming up in the Moroccan space. And I think it goes a bit hand in hand with it's a very interesting geographic position that Morocco is in, right? So in the north, you have Europe, then you have the larger African region, and then you have the Gulf on the east side. So culturally, there's an influx from all these three elements. And I think that allows for a lot of inspiration to happen in and across Morocco. It's a stable country, so it is just a matter of time of getting enough money into the ecosystem from the VC world to really pump up the scalability and allow people to invest in their products.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we talk about Morocco. We have the Moroccan startups that are developing. There is a strong will to develop like a startup, but especially in the tech and digital aspects. so which is really good. I believe that you have like a bright future for till 2030. So we're gonna see how it's gonna do. Now I'm gonna ask you like a question that's you've been managing like Solaris in Europe. You had some challenges.
Mhm.
But what kind of challenges some people that could watch this podcast and see, look, they have these challenges, even though it looks that they've been a unicorn.
Mhm.
What kind of challenges did you face? And right now, the others could see and relate to these kind of challenges. So
Yeah.
what's yeah.
Yeah. Challenges that we are facing as entrepreneurs. I think there's probably 3 that come to mind right away. The first one being having to make decisions without always having all the data ready, right? So are you going for that partner versus the other partner? Are you going for this new employee or another one, right? So there's always a lot of decisions that you are facing, and you don't always know what the right decision is going to be. That's where, again, linking back to the point of the mentors and the advisors, where you sometimes need to say, look, I simply don't know. I need to ask somebody because I need to be having a sparring partner on this topic. I have too many ideas around this. So I think decision making without all the data available is a big one. I think another one is, how do you make sure as a founder you can invoke the same excitement and motivation in the team as that you're having? On the one hand, you as a founder will always be or should be more excited and more driven and more motivated than anybody that is just a regular employee. But still, you need to find that way to inspire them and to make them believe and make them understand what the bigger vision is. So that communication internally, I think, is very important, and not always everybody get right because they're so stuck in many other decisions they need to take. And I think thirdly, it is content switching. So if I look at a regular day, I might go through an investor conversation, a hiring process, a product issue with bugs, then again on the sales strategy, and then there is another topic about some financial situation. So you switch back and forth on hundreds of different topics all the time. And that content switching can be very exhausting, which then leads to, am I making the right decisions? And what helps a lot, I think, and this is why you see that the typical successful company is not being built by a 20, 25-year-old entrepreneur, but typically by a slightly older person who has gone through some of those motions before, so they can lean a lot on that experience and don't have to reinvent the wheel on everything that they're facing, but actually can lean on some experiences that they have. So that context switching, I think, is not often enough talked about, I think, in the entrepreneurial world. Yeah.
So it's more about the focus, about like having like, because when you are, because myself, I live this every day. I can be in a specific topic, then I find myself totally in an opposite topic, and then you feel exhausted. That's
so how do you deal with that?
So how I deal with it? So first of all, I do like some meditation. So I do some kind of meditation. I also try to have this mindfulness to really notice that I'm switching gears.
Right.
And sometimes if I'm exhausted, so I need some rest, but I continue, I always remember my purpose, why I'm doing it. So this is the strongest anchor that I always have.
Yeah.
And as you said, the energy, I try to keep up it's difficult to keep up the same level of energy, but I try to keep like being positive. And sometimes I learn from it. Sometimes when I do this kind of so many things at once, and I notice that there is some kind of things that's not working, the next time I'm not even doing them because they are not aligned with my purpose. And also it's losing a lot of energy, and our brain is like a computer. You have a limited bandwidth. You can't just jump from a topic to the other. The processor needs time to process the information. So this is how I see it.
Yeah. No, maybe one additional point that just comes to mind is really having the right co-founder, because you might have days where you are very strong and very motivated and very driven, but there will be days where you are maybe a bit more down, or you only got bad news in a couple of days. So you need to find the right co-founder who can pick you up as well, or can take over when you're maybe not doing as well, right? So finding that right balance of somebody who can challenge you on the one hand, but also can be your backbone when you really need that. So that's important. So
you mean by co-founder challenging you and picking you up, do you mean also it should be complementary, or is it the same skills, the same set of skills? So
yeah. So But the traditional, let's say, theory in entrepreneurship and starting companies is like you should maybe have a tech founder, a product founder, and a business founder, and that all very complementary. I was talking actually this last evening with my co-founder about this, that we disagree. We're both coming from the business side, so you could argue we have a lot of overlap in skills. But what I find more and more, and I've had other co-founders in other companies, what's most important above anything else is that you have somebody with you that is as driven as you are. And again, if you have maybe a lower day, they can pick you up and really boost you up. I think that gives much more benefit to output than anything else. And you will always find ways where somebody is stronger at or weaker at, where you can find that complementarity. But that's for us the biggest thing. I don't believe in needing to have everything mapped out skills-wise perfectly. It's okay to have overlap. And this is also why you are forcing to have discussions on a particular topic, because you're both maybe very opinionated on a particular area. So have that conversation and allow, like sometimes you need to win some battles and sometimes you need to lose some battles in those discussions. Yeah. So that's I think very important.
So if someone wants to have like a successful company or startup, I would say I would advise him to find a co-founder. Maybe this is the right thing to do. They can do this on their own, but it's gonna be really difficult. It's gonna take a lot of time. Then I'm gonna ask you about the team. So you have a co-founder, but how about the team? What's the ingredient for the team when you're starting something new? What kind of skills they should have?
Yeah. For me, it was ideal to work with people that I already knew, right? So on the tech side, on the product side, it was for me important to know how that person interacts or how that person works, and having to find out how a person works. If you would find somebody, let's say, randomly through your network, you will have to turn the stones a lot of times to see how do that person react and who is that person exactly. But if you've gone through that already because you know them from previous jobs or from your childhood or what may not, it's also much easier to have also difficult conversations with them or how to approach them on difficult topics. So I think that is more important. And of course, for us, it was important to find the right tech person, because that's really critical to get right and make sure that person fully owns the tech side, right? And at the end, it is about going that extra mile, making sure that they feel and understand that same vision, especially the early employees that come in right away after. If you get that wrong, it is very easy for the company to fall apart, because they need to be believing nearly as much into the vision as you are to really drive that extra output that they can deliver. But also the next set of people that are going to be hired, they need to hear from the early employees what it is all about. It cannot always be the founder that needs to do this. And that's why it's, I think, important to go back to that earlier point around challenges, to find the right balance of how do you as a founder inspire the right people so that they can then inspire their own teams again. So that's very important. But at the end, I think it's mostly the biggest thing for me always, other than skills, is mindset. Really looking at, are they not per se working hard, but are they thinking smart? Are they willing to challenge the situation? That's, I think, where you're going to find the most solutions from, instead of just people that are saying yes or just following the orders. I think it's important for them to say, I think you're wrong, Rins. I think you should do that differently. And I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to listen.
Yeah, great. It's great to have, I would say, free feedback from someone who tell you like a honest feedback, than rather than hire like a consultant that would make you like...
Right. Make you feel good.
Yeah, that would make you feel good.
Yeah.
So this is good. How do you approach mindset? Because it's really important for entrepreneurs. I particularly believe in the growth mindset. I believe that anyone can do anything if you put the right mindset into it and start building it up. And I believe that entrepreneurship and innovation is a soft skill. So you have some principles that you can duplicate everywhere else. And I know that we can have some people that are not doing fintech or tech things, but they need to get inspired about the mindset. So what mindset do you have and what's your advice?
I think it's important that a lot of the early people, to get into the right mindset, also hear firsthand the customer feedback, right? So it would drive them, to really solve that bug that might be happening, or to be very proud about the solution that they've just pushed to production. I think that is really, really important, to make them understand what is happening. And just before the podcast, we were of course talking about team offsites and bring the team all to Casablanca, right? The tech team is at the moment working remotely all over the place, but we want to bring them all to Casablanca to make sure they breathe the market, that they understand what the customer pain points are, so they can link their day-to-day work with that greater vision and understanding that they're solving for really cool people some problems that they're having. So that is, I think, very important. And you need to keep repeating the same message over and over again on why we're doing this, what's the bigger purpose, what are the objectives, so that everybody stays within the same course.
Okay, thank you. So it's more about the alignments, more about the vision, and always keep it in mind, or always start having some reminders and getting the feedback. So this is excellent. Now I'm gonna be back to Morocco, going back to your companies, and ask you about your projection as Rins in 5 years. How do you see things?
How I see things for myself personally, or for Zazu, or
for both.
For both.
Why not?
So I hope in 5 years I'm laying somewhere on the beach and don't have to do anything anymore. No, but kidding aside, what I really hope for is that we can, with Zazu, be truly a Pan-African organization, that we really help local entrepreneurs becoming continental entrepreneurs or continental businesses. That is really where I think banking or banking products or financial products can make a very big difference on how do you help that supply and demand, how do you help them with treasury, how do you help them with import, export on documentation, and through that harmonizing much more the continent economically speaking. I think there's a lot that can be done there. So that is very important. And for me, I hope to have built out a team that I can be very proud of, that can work without me because they understand what the greater purpose is, what we're focusing on, so that I can also at some point take a holiday without thinking the house is going to burn down. So that's really what I'm hoping for.
Great. Thank you, Rins. So the last thing that I would ask you, it's an elevator pitch, a 60 seconds elevator pitch about Zazu.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Very good. So the elevator pitch for Zazu is solving for financial clarity, making it very easy for an entrepreneur, a business owner, to understand what their financial health actually looks like. That makes sure that all the critical financial streams that you may have as a business is coming together in one overview, so that you don't have to log into 5 different apps or systems to understand what your financial needs are, or your financial health looks like. We give you that one clear picture because we believe one business should have one clear financial picture. That's what we're solving for.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you here at the Cozon podcast.
Yeah, honored to be invited.
And looking forward to collaborate even more.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you.